There are a lot of very bad people who are having a very bad day today. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler. In my home office, I had to put the doors back on because we are entering the rainy season in Florida, and there has been some news today. Actually, it broke last night that is making people's heads spin. Now, if you watch Dan Bongino's show, you know that Dan Bongino often says you can judge the effectiveness of an action by the reaction of your enemies, and my goodness, Dan Bongino's enemies are reacting today because Dan Bongino has been named Deputy Director of the FBI, serving second only to none other than Kash Patel. Now, before we even get into the meltdown on the left, before we even get into what a deputy director at the FBI does, can we just appreciate the absolute dream team that we have right now in this new Trump administration? You have Tulsi Gabbard, you're going to have Jay Bhattacharya at the NIH, you have Kash Patel as the director of the FBI, you have RFK Jr. as the head of the HHS, and now you have none other than Dan Bongino as the deputy director of the FBI. Things couldn't get much better.
Wonder Twin Powers, activate!
Form of a seagull!
Shape of an ice gondola.
Come on, Gleek, let's go!
And for those of you out there who might not watch the Dan Bongino show regularly, you might not actually appreciate Dan Bongino's amazing, lengthy experience in the field. For those of you who may not know, I will read you a summary from Grok 3. Dan Bongino has a varied career that spans law enforcement, government service, and media. He began as an officer with the New York City Police Department in 1995 before joining the U.S. Secret Service in 1999. During this time with the Secret Service, he served in various roles, including Presidential Protective Division under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama, starting in 2006. After leaving the Secret Service in 2011, he pursued a political career, running unsuccessfully for Congress 3 times as a Republican. Transitioning to media, Bongino became a prominent conservative commentator, hosting the Dan Bongino Show podcast and radio program, and briefly hosting Unfiltered with Dan Bongino on Fox News until 2023. He has also authored several best-selling books drawing on his experiences. In February 2025, he was appointed Deputy Director of the FBI under Director Kash Patel. Holy hell, does a resume not get much better than that? Dan Bongino, other than being one of the most trusted voices on the interwebs, he is an amazing, amazing person who could not be a better fit for this position. And for those of you out there who might not truly appreciate what the Deputy Director at the FBI does, also a Grok 3 summary. The Deputy Director of the FBI serves as the second in command at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, working directly under the Director. This role involves overseeing the day-to-day operations of the agency, ensuring that its mission to protect and defend the United States against terrorist and foreign intelligence threats, uphold and enforce criminal laws, and provide leadership and criminal justice services is carried out effectively.
Pause.
Nobody that I know of in America is better fit to do that than Dan Bongino. In practice, the Deputy Director manages a wide range of responsibilities. They coordinate with the Director to set strategic priorities, oversee major investigations, and ensure that the FBI's various divisions, like counterterrorism, cybercrime, and criminal investigations, run smoothly. They also step in to act as Director when the Director is unavailable, maintaining continuity in leadership. Additionally, the Deputy Director often represents the FBI in high-level meetings with other government agencies, Congress, or the White House, helping to align FBI efforts with broader national security and law enforcement goals. It's a hands-on gig, less about grandstanding and more about keeping the machine humming. Think of it as the person who makes sure the trains run on time while the Director sets the destination. All right, that's a bit of a bizarre way to end it, Grok, but we got a good enough idea as to what the Deputy Director does, and my goodness, for those of you who may have forgotten, Dan Bongino's extensive years of experience also covers a lot of knowledge that he has gained about none other than the Clintons.
Sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, and when do they break with him? You know, because at some point, you know, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members.
Now, a while back, there was some buzz on the streets that Dan Bongino might get selected to be the Director of Secret Service, and when that didn't happen, a bunch of us were somewhat disappointed, which is a true testament to the faith we have in Dan Bongino, that we feel that he is the best person in America to protect Donald Trump's life. This is pretty much a second best runner-up. Now he's going to be in charge, or at least second in charge, of the FBI, and the rejoicing on the right is an indication as to how good this pick is, and the lamenting and the freak out on the left. the utter meltdown is a pretty good indication as to what a good pick this is. For those of you who watch Dan Bongino, you know that he often says, judge the effectiveness of an action by the reaction of the enemy. And for those of you who don't watch Dan Bongino, judge the effectiveness of an action by the reaction of the enemy. Today, the enemy is literally melting down. Here's a post from somebody named Fred Wellman, who's going to have to change his name to Fred Not So Wellman, saying this guy is a monster, and he posts a 28-second clip that he thinks proves that.
The thing that matters is what? Chat. What matters? Anyone? Power. Power. You can see what I'm mouthing. Power. That is all that matters. No, it doesn't, Dan. We have a system of checks and balances. That's a good one. That's really funny. We do?
And as part 2 of Fred Not So Wellman's meltdown, this is Dan Bongino last June discussing MAGA's plans for when they take power. He is promising retribution. He has now been appointed to be the deputy director of the FBI.
We're not forgetting about any of this, lefties. Are you listening to us? We here, I don't care what you're hearing from Republicans on Capitol Hill. We are not forgetting about shit. Do you get that? We are going to hold every one of these people accountable.
Yes! 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 Oh! 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 Oh, God. Oh.
And here's one from Ricky Davila at the Ricky Davila. Usually the FBI deputy director is an actual FBI agent who is hired from within the bureau. So by giving a grifting, deranged scumbag, Dan Bongino, who belongs in a mental institution, that job, the orange felon is living up to his promise of dumb fuckery, lawlessness, and destruction. Another totally normal reaction from a group of totally normal people who are not totally mentally unwell. And when I went to reply to that tweet, to quote tweet that tweet, I saw that I couldn't quote tweet that thing, and I found that I was blocked by someone who I don't think I even knew who he was. And last but not least, a response from one Charlie Sykes, who's taking it rather well for someone on the left. Psych! My goodness, these jokes literally write themselves. Charlie Sykes, in response to Fred Not So Wellman, this guy is a monster, Charlie Sykes writes, and an idiot. And if you go over to his profile, Charlie Sykes, at Sykes Charlie, author, Substack newsletter, quote, to the contrary, end quote, dog owner, grandfather, MSNBC, still never Trump. So all of these unhinged lunatics are having a very bad day, to say the least. And why might they be having a bad day? Well, they probably watch Dan Bongino more than some of his most ardent followers because they just need to see what he's saying. For the last little while, Dan Bongino has been going off on 3 specific issues, one of which was the January 6 pipe bombs. Bongino has long been alluding to the fact that he knows damn well it was an inside job by the DNC, by Democrat operatives, but that he couldn't come forward because his insider person wasn't ready to come forward yet. He will now be second in command to the FBI that will deal with counterterrorism charges, much like what people think those pipe bombs were intended to be, or possibly were a fake of. Yeah, Dan Bongino knows what's going on with the pipe bombs. He is now going to be in a position to do something concrete about it. My goodness, it couldn't come soon enough. Number 2, Dan Bongino has been going on for quite a bit about the Clintons, how Hillary Clinton literally is the most awful, evil person on earth. The stories that he has about Bill Clinton, oh my goodness, he knows where the skeletons are buried, and it's no wonder the deviants on the left are absolutely having a freak out. And last but not least, and potentially the most important as far as I am concerned, Dan Bongino had the best insights and the best intel on the July 13th attempt on Donald John Trump's life. And my goodness, he knows where to look. He was doggedly following up with that story when the rest of the media just wanted to move on from a failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, an actual murder of an American citizen. The media was just ready to go on, forget about it, not ask any more questions, not Dan Bongino, and now he is second in charge at the FBI. We are barely 2 months into Donald Trump's presidency, and things in America, I can tell you from someone living in Florida, are exponentially better. Despite the meltdown on the left, things are getting better despite their best efforts. But I would dare say that the faith in the FBI will soon be restored, if it hasn't already been restored, at least in part. It is definitely on the mend. If you heard what he said on his show today, you would have no doubt, not just in his ability and dedication to do the job, but in his steadfast adherence to the Constitution, something some Democrats maybe seem to have forgotten a little bit about. Now, when I first heard this news, I was nothing but pure joy. I'm like, this is absolutely amazing. And the thought didn't even cross my head until I started reading the replies that Dan Bongino will have to stop doing his show. Now, I have long said that Dan Bongino has been one of the most prominent voices, one of the most effective voices voices. I think that Donald Trump's election was in large part because of Dan Bongino's massive voice. He now has to give up that voice voluntarily to serve country, and I cannot really think of a more selfless act than giving up a show that he's been building for years, an audience, a massive audience of dedicated fans who are now going to have to understand his sacrifice to pursue the greater good. He is now going to serve his country, even though it means not abandoning because it's only temporarily, but setting aside the project that he has built with the Dan Bongino show. That is true sacrifice. That is someone giving up financial success, media success, giving up what people strive their entire lives for. He is now voluntarily relinquishing it so that he can serve as deputy director. An amazing thing, an amazing honor, and what he said on his show today really perfectly encapsulated it. Oh yeah, and almost most importantly, don't forget to subscribe, turn notifications on, drop a comment in the comment section below. But before we leave, congratulations, Dan. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for everything you are going to do. It could not happen to a better person, and I eagerly await to see all of the changes you will make to actually go fight crime, fight terrorism, fight real criminals, and not prosecute and persecute January 6ers, the pro-lifers who go pray in front of abortion clinics, to actually go fight real crime, which is exactly what the FBI was supposed to do and what it will get back to doing. Dan, Godspeed, God bless, and enjoy this mission. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!
I never got in this for the money or notoriety. Listen, I enjoy making money and that I can impact people's lives and that people come out and say nice things to me as much as the next guy. But if you think that's why I got involved in this, running as a Republican in deep blue Maryland, my life of activism and my time in the Secret Service, if you think I get into the Secret Service to get rich, and you don't know me and you haven't seen the government salary scale. But I am going in this clear-eyed. Vision of President Trump, Attorney General Bondi, and Director Patel. I am going to do my job to implement that vision. And I can tell you right now, we are going to try our best. Every single thing I have in me, every single strand of DNA cell in my body is going to be dedicated towards keeping this homeland safe, no matter what. No matter what, that's my job. We're going to reestablish faith in this institution. And the good people there doing their job, hitting the streets, developing sources, we'll have your back. We are going to reestablish faith in this institution. The FBI belongs to the American people. Doesn't belong to me. Doesn't belong to anyone else but the American people. But this is the honor of a lifetime, and it's a serious mission. And I plan on implementing that vision. Folks, there are a small number of people out there in the country right now dedicated to doing really bad things. It's not the overwhelming majority of Americans are patriots that love this country and love their family. They love their jobs. They go to work every day. But there are a small number of really bad people out there who are planning on really bad things, from terrorists to narco traffickers, child sex rings, gang members. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to rest easy until we find as many of you as we can. Don't sleep. No, after today. That's my mission. Folks, of course, the Constitution matters. We're going to get back to the four corners of that document that guide us all as well. And I think you know from my history of covering content here that the primacy of that is really important. You understand that? It is the one thing that dictates all the rest of your actions, and that's the Constitution.